Welcome to the new season of the Live Your Spa Life show. The Spa and Spa Life stands for Seek Power Always, that divine power within you to do what you're here to do. The theme for this season is Freedom Fighter. Amazing people like you share ways to ensure your freedom physically, financially, spiritually, and in your relationships to create a world-class life. In these times of uncertainty, it's time for you to move past the distractions and start trusting yourself more through your God-given knowingness. No one truly knows better what's best for you than you. In this season, you'll have plenty of examples of people choosing their best life and giving a voice of freedom to those who are also looking to have their best life. Thank you for sharing your precious time with us and being part of the Live Your Spa Life conversation. With us today is Mayara Souza, who grew up in Brazil, and she had a lot to overcome with very adverse and traumatic childhood. She has a history of physical, mental, and sexual abuse that led to an intense dependency on alcohol since her early years. Mayara finally moved to America in her mid-20s when she started her healing process and continues to evolve every day. Mayara, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Diane. I appreciate it.
It's so good to have you. And I know that you've done some extensive research on trauma and consciousness, and you became a certified sound therapist. And so I'd love for you to share, first of all, how did you first discover sound therapy, and how have you found it to support not only yourself, but people that you work with?
Yes, so it's interesting because what I came across first was meditation. I was struggling to get out of the alcohol dependency and trying to figure out how to kind of shift my lifestyle because, everything that I was doing wasn't really like sustainable. And I came across meditation to shift your lifestyle, to start, just calming the mind, calming the static and the chaos that's happening up there. And I started researching meditation. So I came across a variety of different types of meditation until the guided meditations that use sound and the plant meditations that use the icaros, the songs that are sang to the client. So I just started putting pieces and bits together on people using the sound as therapy. Even just like if you use as an example like a song, if you're feeling down and low and sad or whatever it is, or have a broken heart, you listen to your favorite song, everything changes, like your mood changes, you feel more energy and feel more vibrating. So learning that, I started using it for myself and came across the tuning forks that I use today, the method that I practice today, and doing it for my own healing, and started sharing it in my practice. I was already coaching people in health and all that, so I started bringing it into my practice, and it's phenomenal, the things that people are shifting, like getting rid of chronic pain and depression, anxiety symptoms, like diminishing, and mind shifts in a way that they notice that the situation is the same, but they don't get as triggered as before. Like people keep behaving the way they will and all of that, but the clients are not getting as triggered anymore. They have that inner peace that is unshakable. That they just sit on that groundedness space, and the world is the chaos that is going on right now, but it's all out there. It doesn't come in as much anymore, which to me is like freedom.
Definitely. Well, as our theme for this season about, how we're being intentional with freedom and how we're creating freedom in our lives. And, it's really up to us to be to be our own doctor, to really know what our bodies need, to be able to do things that are truly healing for us. And there's so many different, natural ways to learn about your body and to listen to our body, which a lot of times people don't, or they wait till they're sick till that happens. And then maybe people get right back to like, they're just at the threshold, but they're not in the wellness, right? And I look at this as, putting yourself on the other edge of this, of actually being proactive. And I think that's so important, in this time and age, for people to be really proactive about their health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. And it's interesting how, like, the clients that do it regularly, the things that they notice shifting in their lives, like sometimes if let's say a person shows up and they want to like lose weight, And it's not necessarily that we're going to work directly on that as much as we work on the root of the problem. What is it that is making you eat the foods that you're not meant to be eating, or overeat, or whatever it is that is causing the overweight? As we work on that layer and we start like releasing the blocked energy that is related to that, to the root of the problem, they notice that they start eating more naturally. They start eating things that are better for them. They start eating less quantity, eating at the right time, drinking more water. It's like, what is fascinating to me about this practice is the natural way that things just fall into place. Just like you said, you keep doing it on a regular basis and dropping the layers of stress from the nervous system that is causing, a certain behavior that you're looking into shifting. And then you just notice naturally that shift. And the doing of the new behavior being easier and easier.
Right. Well, what I love is that, you talk about, a lot of people have a lot of different ways they address, like weight is the example, but I love how you look at what's underneath that, because if we don't look at the core things, you could lose a bunch of weight. In fact, a lot of people say, why use the word lose? Because then subconsciously you're trying to find it, right?
Exactly.
It's like, what are you trying to release? What are the things that are behind this? And, this is part of what's happened in Western medicine is that, they'll continue to treat things based on symptoms without ever looking at what is, underneath that, and what are the things to look at that can actually help have real health and real sustainability in that. So I love how you are looking at like, hey, why did this even come here in the first place? And we have to be able to be investigative and to be able to ask those deeper questions. And I know when it comes to sound therapy, there's almost like it has its own language. There's like a lot of different layers to it that people may not really understand. Like for instance, what you refer to as BT, which is the Biofield Tuning. What the heck's that?
So we use the same way that they use tuning forks to tune instruments. They use the sound, and the sound hits the instrument. They are able to tune the instrument. We use the tuning forks to tune the electromagnetic field of the body. So the body, everything is vibrating. Right now, we know that on a molecular level, on the atomic level, it's just this little ball of energy just vibrating. Everything is made out of this little ball of energy vibrating. And so when there is imbalance in the body, that vibration is out of balance. There's something that has affected how the body is vibrating, how our cells are vibrating. So when we use the tuning fork out on the field around the body has the opportunity to listen to how it is vibrating with the resonance of the sound from the fork. And when the body notices areas of the body that has imbalance, that it's not vibrating in the balanced harmony that is supposed to be vibrating, it uses the sound wave from the fork to harmonize itself. So basically, the body is doing the healing. It's not necessarily the fork, but is the body. The body is just receiving that input of a harmonized frequency to be able to harmonize its own frequency. And with those cells going back to vibrating on the frequency that they are meant to, they start doing the work that they are supposed to be doing. So everything in the body starts going back into its natural cycle. So you sleep better, your digestive system gets better, the thinking cycles, they get more natural. So everything starts falling back into the natural rhythm of the body, because then the body starts vibrating with the frequency that it's meant to.
Yeah. This is so powerful. In fact, one of my health mentors, Maria Whalen, talks about how, anything the body creates, the body can heal. And I think people underestimate that it is the body that heals. And the only thing that actually can heal the body is the body, right? And sometimes we put either barriers in front of the body, or we're taking things that get in the way of the body. And so it's important to know, when we have that trust, and that, God made a beautiful instrument in our body, and it knows how to work if we get out of its way and allow that to actually happen. And I'm fascinated with the whole sound aspect of it. And so how does sound therapy like relax your nervous system and help with stress?
Yes. It's interesting what you just said. It's like, if you think about when you have a cut, like you don't have to do anything to heal. You don't have to consciously be healing it. The body is healing it while you're going about your life, right? So It's the same thing with everything else. So our nervous system accumulates all types of stress that we submit ourselves to. It can be, toxins in the air. It can be toxic people, toxic environments and places. It can be our own thinking, our own toxic thinking. All of that stress gets accumulated on the nervous system. And that's what I'm talking about. The body is kind of waiting there for an input to be able to release that. One example that I like to give, it's like the animals, they have this natural way of doing things because they're so connected to nature. That is, like if a gazelle has to run from the tiger, from the predator, because so she's not going to be eaten. Once she sees that the danger is not there anymore, that she has escaped and she's safe and she's fine, they shake. You can see the dogs do that. They shake it off. So that's a way to release that tension from their nervous system, of that fear, of that tension that was accumulated from the fight or flight system that got activated, right? So shaking it off literally puts them back into the repair and mode that get them out of the fight or flight. So we don't have the habit of doing it as humans. We get, stressed out that someone said something or this thing happened, this outcome wasn't exactly what I needed it to be. And then we get that stress and we don't have these natural ways to release that stress. So it keeps accumulating on the nervous system with everything else. Like I said, our environment today is so stressful in so many levels, chemical and all that. So when the body listens to that frequency, allows the nervous system to go into this deep, deep, relaxed state, that it can release all of that stuff that is accumulated, that has been accumulating on top of the other. It gets the opportunity for the body to feel safe and protected in that moment, to allow the nervous system to relax in that deep, deep state. Some people say it's even deeper than sleeping, deeper than the dream state, because it's the repair mode that your body gets. And so it starts releasing. A lot of the times it happens in the session. In the session, the person cries or starts shaking or feels like very cold or very hot. Like there's changes that happen in the body that you can notice the release of those stresses, of those energies coming out of the body. Sometimes not necessarily on the table while I'm doing the session, but afterwards. The next couple of days, you can feel overly tired, overly emotional, cry, but not really sure what's about. A lot of the times it's about this stuff that we are getting rid of, that we are releasing from the nervous system. Crying, it's one of the most effective ways to release stress from the nervous system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so powerful because I think sometimes people like overlook the emotional, mental aspect of it. They can even look at it as a weakness, or they don't have time to deal with it, those kind of things. And particularly in the last couple of years, the level of stress, the high level of suicide, depression, there's all these things that if people would have practices in place, whether, it's prayer, meditation, utilizing things like sound, really listening to what your body needs, because the body will tell you, what's going on with it if we pay attention. It's just like with prayer. God will tell us whether or not we want to hear it or not if we give ourselves that moment of silence and be able to be present to that. So I think this is such an important reminder for people to go, like, they're much more powerful than they believe. And there's a lot of tools like what you offer to have people shake these things off. And I love the analogy with, animals in that, they have to instantaneously get rid of these things so that they can be prepared for these fight or flight situations. And as humans, we don't necessarily look at that, and we need to have some of those things, in place for that. One of the other things in sound healing they talk about is having meridian flushes. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes. So I like to compare the method that we use with Chinese medicine, because I noticed that for people that are new to sound healing, they are not quite sure how it works. And when I compare to acupuncture is just like so thousands of years that Chinese have been using it, and people resonate more. So the same way that acupuncture uses the needles in certain areas of your meridian throughout your body to release blocks of energy that are causing whatever the symptom is that you come to treat, we do the same thing with the sound. We apply the weighted fork sometimes in certain areas of your meridians in the body to release those blocks of energy that would be released by the needles with acupuncture. So it's very similar, the way that we release blocks throughout the meridian in the body. And we have this specific session, like you were saying, that is the Meridian Flush, that we place it in all the fingertips and the toes, and bring that energy back into circulation. Anything that is stagnated there, bringing it back into circulation. And really quickly, I wanted to touch on what you were talking about with depression, because that's a huge thing that we are noticing shifts also, because it's like when you are getting triggered, the anxiety, depression is getting triggered, it's something that the person already carries with them, right? And then some external situation triggers that stuff within. It can be an unhealed wound or whatever it is that we are carrying within that gets triggered. As we notice the relaxation of the nervous system and the release of all those stagnated energies in the body and in the field around the body, we notice that people are not feeling as depressed and anxious anymore, because whatever it was that they had within that was getting triggered for them to feeling that way, it's not there anymore. Those blocks of energy were released, and then they are noticing anxiety, depression subside after, right, the regular sessions, which for me, it's like it's a non-invasive way to take care of something so huge in our culture today.
Right. Well, and I love how you talk about just the triggers, and we see so much evidence of this out in the world, where how people respond to certain things. Like you could have a lot of different people experience something, but they react in a different way because of how it triggered. And so sometimes people will give so much validity to what's happening outside of them versus really checking in with, what's the alignment within themselves and how they can respond to things in a better way. People get used to reacting and not, have the tools to be able to respond and look at things in a different way. It's like if somebody watches on, television, like the next crisis and the fear and all the things that are going on, if you buy into those kind of things, then you're not checking in with yourself and how to deal with what may be triggered because of those external things that happen. And when we start really looking at how we can, fortify our foundation and utilize some of these things so that we have better coping mechanisms, that we can actually move through things with a much clearer head, then it just makes all the difference in the world.
Yes, it's actually exactly how we look at it with this method. We look at that's why we work on the biofield around the body, the electromagnetic field that we have flowing around our bodies, because we look at it as those are experiences that we have had. So they are the lenses within which we perceive our reality. It's exactly what you were saying. Like if you and I experience the same situation, we're going to interpret it completely different, because you bring your experiences to the table as the lenses within which you will perceive that situation, and I will bring my experiences. So what we do with the fork is the release of those experiences, kind of like in front of our eyes that are filtering our reality. So with the release of those unprocessed traumas and all that stuff that we are carrying around our field, not having that anymore, the situation happens and we can see it for what it is, not bringing all that judgment to it with our experiences and all the traumas and all the unhealed wounds and all that stuff to filter the reality. We just see it as it is, as the reality that it is. And it's bringing a lot of peace to people. And I can say that for myself, my own experience, it's one of the things that I absolutely love about this method on my own healing, is that, life will bring me things and people, and I welcome the same way that I welcome when life takes it away, takes people away and situations and circumstances as they go. I also welcome them going, because it brings that peace, that inner peace. I don't need anything else. I need what God is bringing me, and what God's taking away, that's okay too.
Right.
It's huge. You're talking about the freedom. It's a huge freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when you start looking at everything as from like, how is it for me? and that there's a message, there's a lesson, there's something to go through, versus it's a very different energy if you keep thinking that, like, oh, it's happening to me and all these things are going on, and kind of that victim mentality. And, I talk quite often about how people can have victim experiences, but they don't have to, identify themselves as a victim. And that makes all the difference in the world, because when these things happen, you can really look at, like, okay, what was in this for me? And a lot of times people will look at, major tragedies or things that happen and be like, oh, how can there possibly be something good that comes out of that? Well, how we look at it, what we learn from it, this is what allows us to evolve as a culture, to really be able to really look at, if we can't have hope and can't have, that peace that you're talking about and have that come through, if we're not creating that opening within ourselves, we can never see something different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's amazing. I know part of, with trauma, that all of our experiences are stored within us, actually in a physical way. And I know that is something, like you talked about, how it can jade or trigger us in different ways. How did you specifically, traumas that were stored within yourself, were you able to feel them lift? Was that something over time? Was there some spontaneous moments around that? What was your own journey about with it?
Mm-hmm. Sometimes, depending on what is it that I was working through, I could notice the shift right away. I did some work with plant medicine, and I noticed that, like, we would do 1 weekend of ceremony, and I would see a lot of things from my childhood that were suppressed, that I have forgotten. As you know about trauma, we get this disorganized memory where the childhood becomes this blank, because there was so much trauma and you just want to suppress it all so that you can function in life, so you don't have those vivid things in your mind. So I noticed that in, like, 1 weekend, I would see a whole bunch of things from my childhood, but from a place of forgiveness, from a place of understanding that all the people involved in my childhood, they were doing as best as they could with what they had at the moment. So it's a very expanded way of seeing things. You see through the eyes of forgiveness. You don't carry, that weight, that burden with you anymore. And some other things, I noticed that it was the consecutive work, like the regular work with the sound, the regular work on doing my meditations and doing my practices. I noticed that eventually at some point I would be like, wow, this used to trigger the heck out of me, and now I'm just fine. The same feedback that I get from the clients. Sometimes it's very, like, obvious. It happens like this and you can see it, you can feel it. And sometimes it's the continuation of the work. And then you just, catch yourself kind of like, whoa, like the old version of me would be like so pissed right now.
I've evolved.
Right? So I feel like it depends on, like, the layers that you are working on. If you have something that you already kind of started healing, you can see after, maybe a few sessions, maybe a few months doing sessions, you totally look at yourself and you're like, wow, I am a completely different person from when I started doing these sessions. Yes. So you can definitely tell it's tangible.
That's
and
so great.
People around you, they can see it too. They totally tell you, like, oh my gosh, you have changed so much. You're so much more grounded and, just peaceful and relaxed. And man, this is the goal, isn't it?
So good. I love this. I know that you've talked quite a bit about habits, and I'd love for you to talk about, why do you think habits are so hard to change?
Yeah, this is how I started my own healing. So my father had a heart attack at 37 and he passed away, and I was 4, and he had a problem with alcohol. So when I was getting close to my 30s house and I was having a problem with alcohol, that was the trigger for me to start my healing process. I got scared of heart conditions because of his heart attack, and I started researching on heart condition. And I came across epigenetics. Like, it's not so much the genes that you are carrying from him as much as the lifestyle that came from him, and you end up turning on the same genes. Nice. So that was like freedom in my mind, because I was like, if I change the lifestyle, I don't have to turn on the same genes. Yes. And researching how to change lifestyle, that was hard. However, I'm very grateful and thankful that one of the first things that I came across was meditation, because it really helps you to see from a zoom out perspective on the big picture of why you are doing the things that you are doing constantly, how much that's linked to childhood, to things that were done to you or said to you, and you bring in those habits into adult life. So seeing it from that perspective, for me, it was huge to help me to at least start trying to shift. Like one example, it's like eating healthy, right? Like for you to, if you haven't been eating healthy for most of your life, to try to throw all of that away and bring in just fruits and vegetables and all the good stuff, it's very hard. Yeah. But however, the way I learned, you start bringing in the good habit first, it's going to crowd the bad habits. So if I start introducing the vegetables to what I was already eating, I can only eat so much. Right? At a certain point, you notice the shifts because you are introducing the vegetables and it's making you full. You don't have that much space for the stuff that you used to eat before. So I started doing that with the habits. I started putting the meditation in my morning before starting work and all of that. And I started like crowding out all the things that I wanted, out of my life. And I love it because happening in a natural way, that way it's easier to get more and more discipline into it and just continue and make it a habit, make it a routine.
Yeah. Oh, so smart. It's like the environments that we create for ourselves, if that's the environment it is, you're going to do with what there is. And, if you create healthy things in your environment, then that just becomes your lifestyle. You're evolving into that. So, it's not always just a all or nothing, situation. So to be able to create that so that you can actually do something that's consistent, that actually have lasting change, that's a great benefit to that. So speaking of creating things, one of the things I love to ask my guests on the show is that we have different experiences in our kitchen versus our bedroom versus, our office. What's your favorite room in your home and why?
My meditation space. Because I feel like I just open up energetically, like so much to God, to the universe, to everything, to love and to light. And it's just tremendous, the experiences that I have while I'm, doing my practices, doing my yoga, meditating. It's just, oh my gosh, I just want to be there, right? So the practice is bringing that into the rest of the day. When you have meetings, when you have sessions, when you have other things, when you are running errands, right? And you bring that inner peace with you. But I would say in my house, if I have to pick this spot, is my meditation spot for sure.
Yeah. I love it. That is so great. Well, I know that our listeners are going to want to stay in contact with you. How can they best do that?
Yes. So I make it simple. Everything is in my website. My first name, Mayara, Mayara, and then dash, and my last name, Souza, SOUZA.com.
Perfect.
And then everything is going to be there. Social media, email, you can contact me from there. There's a whole bunch of good information there too.
Great. Yes. And you've got some videos in there too. So it's a really great resource that you have there. And we'll post that with the show so people can get to that. And as you know that our theme for this season is freedom, right? And how you're creating freedom in your life. So how are you creating freedom in your life today?
I'm doing my work. I'm doing my work diligently because it's like I said, to me, this is freedom, is when you don't have to change anything external. You are changing internally enough that everything that's happening externally doesn't affect your inner peace. To me, that's freedom, big time.
Absolutely. Well, if everyone was doing that and taking personal responsibility for what they're creating in this world, it'd be a very different place. So it always begins with ourselves. That's the only thing that we can change. And so I just appreciate your wisdom, your journey, and sharing this, with our listeners. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for the platform. I appreciate it.
You got it. And to our listeners out there, please share this. Please get it out there. We so appreciate you being here. And hopefully there's like at least one, nugget that came to you today that you can shift and change in your life so that you can start seeing how life is happening for you and have more control of your health and your peace of mind. And until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. Bye-bye.